still open, right? In that, okay, you had everyone, to Sandra Bland, you had all of these lives lost, and black people made, we rioted, we got out in the streets, we started the Black Lives Matter movement, all of those things, and then and then white people kind of just like, oh, let's give them something, and then it's just like, is it over? It's like Oscar so black. Okay, okay, good. We gave you some Oscars. Are we good now? Like, are we even? And it's now it's just like, oh, no, 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 no. This is not about like a band-aid. It's like, yo, we might have to amputate the leg a little bit, but it's all right because we're gonna, by amputating the leg, we're gonna save the body. And so I think that's what's happening now. Like, America is realizing, like, oh, black people aren't just making a little bit of noise. Like, the protests are still out, the conversations are still being had, the change is still being demanded, and I think they're seeing, oh, this is not going no way, and no, it's not, because we need systematic change.
What a beautiful way to explore what is happening and describe our country. We might have to amputate the leg, but that's to save the body. That's what's happening right now. That's beautiful, Yvonne. And to that end, I have to ask you this, because the way that we do that, we use our voice. And our voice right now in this world, in this country, is our vote. And everyone talks about voting and how important it is, but I feel like more than ever we understand that it's not just about voting every 4 years for the man in office. It's about your local elections. It's about the mayor. It is about the district attorney, the people who have the power to bring charges against police if police brutality is an issue in your community. If you care about your school district, you can run for the school board. I ask this of you, right? Your parents are from Nigeria. You are Nigerian. You talk about that very lovingly. What does voting mean for you?
I think voting is power. I remember, I became a naturalized citizen back in the '90s, when because I was still a minor. My mom naturalized, and so we were able to do it under her. And just even that power of, like, we are American citizens, and all the access that we have by being citizens. One of those accesses and those access to power being voting. It's a big deal. It's a big deal because not only are we do we have the opportunity to be in this country, but now we can be of the country. We can be of the systems. We can be of the rules. We can be of what it actually affords. But I think, going back to your earlier comment about just the setup of systems, I think we are done a disservice. Either it's schools or whatever it is, and I'm not putting teachers on blast. I think teachers do a phenomenal job, but for some reason we do not, and give them all the raises. I know too many parents who are like, I might, this child of mine, I do love them, but hey, who where can I drop them off? And I do think that there is a disservice done because, again, when we talk about them, to your point, we talk about every 4 years. It's important to vote for the presidency. We don't realize, like, oh, snap, we actually can vote about, like, how much our libraries get. It's like small things like that, but they make a big difference.
When you think of voter suppression in this country, what does it look like for you?
It's the systems. When we talk about voter suppression, we all the systems that set up, and we've normalized, okay, maybe your job will give you a half day, or maybe, you'll be able to get this luxury. It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be built into the system. It should be built into the fabric of how we vote. But maybe you'll be able to get this luxury in order to enable you to go vote. Think about everything disenfranchised, marginalized black person has to endure in a day. So in a day, you need to get to work. If something happens to your car, if something happens to your child care, if something happens to, there's so many factors along the way that can send you into a tailspin as an American. And then you add on as a person of color. If you're just trying to get to vote and you already have to go through all of these hurdles and hoops in your everyday life, imagine the one day when your voice really is supposed to matter the most in this country. But then you also see all the times that you tried to have your voice matter, and then it's been shut down, repressed, told it doesn't matter. And
How do we keep hope though? If I'm watching this right now, I want to I how do we as a people stay hopeful? How do we believe in the promise that these quote unquote forefathers have given us?
because have you met black people? By default, Like hope is infused in our DNA. Like you know what I'm saying? Like by the like if we haven't been broken now through be it through
You're right.
slavery, through
Give it to give
capitalism,
it to me.
through
Give it to me.
colonization, through
Yes,
segregation,
you're right.
through I mean, listen, the history of black people in this country is at one point we were 3/5 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
At one,
That was a written law. And look at us now. We are whole. We are black girl magic. We are black boy joy. We are, you know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
What I think about in terms of giving us hope, right? We're making a lot of people nervous right now, Carrie. We're
Oh,
making a
girl,
lot of people
Ben.
nervous right now because they're like, dang, we put all these obstacles in their way, and these jokers are resilient. But that should give us hope. That should give us hope that like we can't stop, won't stop. I mean, I went to the school of Diddy. You know what I'm saying? Hashtag, Harlem shaking it right now. Can't stop, won't stop. And I think that's our motto. We can't stop voting and we won't stop voting. We can't stop marching and we won't stop marching. We can't stop thriving and we won't stop thriving.
To that end, because you led me directly there, I've been asking everyone who's appeared on this platform, what does activism look like? And I feel like back in the day, we had an idea. Yes, it is marching. Yes, it
Yeah.
is protesting. Yes, it is speaking out against things that we feel are not right or unjust. But talk to me about what activism looks like for Yvonne Orji.
Listen, activism, I think the beauty of activism is that it has many faces, right? You're going to have the people on the front lines. Like, you know what? Martin Luther King marched, but there were a lot of women who were in the homes like, hey, BT Dubs, when they come back, this is how we support all the people who are marching on the front lines. And we're going to be here doing what we know to do best here. And you know what? Somebody needs to bail them out of jail so now we need to be in the community, getting money or whatever it is. So it's like everybody has a position to play. And so play your position like a shortstop, bruh. So whoever you are and whatever you do, play your position. So activism could look like, you know what? I'm not the one that's built to be on the front line, but you know what? My pockets go deep, so I'm gonna support the people on the front line. I'm a comedian. Black joy is a form of activism.
There's always a call for entertainers or celebrities that have the platform to do something. Why aren't you speaking out? I'm not a believer in thinking that it's mandatory. Like you said, everyone can be an activist and be activated in different ways. But talk to me about the connection. Talk to me about the marginalization in your world and how you feel like it even inspires you to say more and use your platform to do more.
Beneath the surface of what we do, like Niecy Nash says, it's the the who, right? The who is the person who's going to be like, hey, let me call this out. Either blind racism in terms overt racism in terms of ways that we can be better, in terms of ways that we can actually be more uplifting to the community that you may not even realize that you're serving.
Before I let you go, talk to me about the urgency, in your opinion, for people to vote, our people to get out and vote this coming election.
Yeah, I mean, guys, it may be hard to figure out who to vote for, but at the end of the day, we got to vote for our families. We got to vote for our legacies. We got to vote for continued progress. We have to vote for upward mobility. We have to vote for equality in a way that is long lasting. And if we succeeded before, we can do it again. You talk about the whole. This is the time. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time to pretend a way that we haven't made progress. We have. There's still much more to be done. And you know what? We might have to get to a point where we pass the baton to our children and our children's children, but we still have work to do now for that generation.
Von Orgy, you are everything. You are Molly, but you are not Molly. But I love you so much as Molly on HBO's Insecure. You are an amazing podcaster, Jesus and Jola. Shout out to Lovey. And then we also have movies. Like you, the world. You're a model, a cover model. Also, wait, don't let me forget your hugely successful stand-up comedy special on HBO. Girl, I mean, you're doing it all, and I am so grateful. You're truly the dream, not just the American dream. You're the black girl, brown girl, do it all dream, the immigrant dream, everything. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I really, really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Yvonne Orgy, ladies and gentlemen, nothing but the best and excellence personified. Thank you so much for
I love you so much, Mama. Mwah.
Yeah, la la. So, Atlanta has been one of the hotbeds in terms of political unrest and social injustice. We've seen so much happen in that city, and we've also seen so much come from that city, including one of our very own founding fathers of the civil rights movement, and that's Martin Luther King Jr. But right now, we want to welcome in someone who has used his platform to talk about voting, to talk about racial injustice, and how he's trying to help. Atlanta's very own Russ joins us now on We the People. Russ, I'm not going to fan out and tell you what some of my favorite songs were that I heard you repeat on yours. We're going to get to the topic at hand. So, we got to talk about recently you did an interview where you shared your outlook on culture and music. And you also were very candid about the fact that you have a privilege and that it's necessary for you to give back. Tell everybody about what that means.
As like it's very obvious, I'm white and I'm in black culture and I'm benefiting financially off of it. So I feel like if you're a white person financially benefiting off of black culture, you have to put finances back into black culture. It's just that simple. The screenshots with your feelings, it just comes off like fake empathy because it comes off very dismissive and very oh, that sucks for y'all. But anyway, back to what I was doing.
Have you felt that way always, or is it now because of the time of where we are in this country?
I've always had the feeling. I think now it's just obviously elevated. It's a new level, and there's new, it's to the point now where you can't. First of all, you can't not say anything. Second of all, though, I just think saying something isn't enough anymore. I think, if you have the ability to put money back into a culture that you're financially benefiting from, have the ability to, you should.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way because some people do believe that silence is the best way to go because it's hard to talk race, especially if you're white and you're in the black culture. People just feel as if they can't talk about it. They feel awkward. They feel as if they don't have the privilege or the voice or the words. How do you find yourself right now in terms of interacting with people when they want to talk to you about social injustice, police brutality, what's going on in this country right now?
Well, first of all, picking and choosing whether you want to be silent or not about race, that's a privilege in and of itself. But just do my best to listen to the black people around me and the educated black people I have in my life. So I do my best to not act like I have all the answers for everything, especially in a culture that I'm not from. But that's why when we decided to raise the money for Black Lives Matter organizations, when we raised 500,000, we got on the phone with some of the women who started Black Lives Matter. I got on the phone with Tamika Mallory. I was on the phone with Karen Civil and talking with my friends to make sure the money went to like the correct places, and people who really need it. It's just about listening. That's all. It's about listening.
Let's talk about that for a moment because the way I think of activism for me, it looks very differently. It's not necessarily just protesting on the front lines. I think that's great. But what about being an activist in the way in which you have decided to be one? What inspired you? What did it look like? You said you raised money for Black Lives Matter. What did you do? Walk us through everything that you did and how you find yourself in this moment right now.
So for me, it was 3 years ago. I had like a string of festivals, and I decided that I was going to wear T-shirts with a message on them because I figured, what better, what better time to use a platform than in front of a bunch of people. So one of the T-shirts I wore was, "If you want to change the system, speak up. White silence is pro-racism." The whole thing. And it didn't really it kind of got swept under the rug back then. But when all this stuff started happening again, and it's been happening, the police brutality against innocent black people, I was like, man, I'm not the biggest artist in the world, and I certainly don't have the most white fans in the world, but I got a good amount of people that I can definitely mobilize and turn into some money. And I know they're down for the cause because it's merch, it's a good thing. And I've always been outspoken anyway, And so, how am I going to be in black culture and not be outspoken about racism?
And then I got to ask you this because you grew up in Atlanta, so that gives you a heads up, depending for so many people, because you're in the crux of that beautiful black city where there are so many wonderful black leaders, home of so much great music and things that speak to our culture right now. And we are really, really getting our word out, especially with this platform today, and saying that we must use our voice to vote. Talk to me about what the importance of voting for you in this upcoming election.
Yeah, so full transparency, I had never voted before, ever. Um, and because I was one of those people who was like, my vote doesn't matter, and and I don't know, maybe it's because I was younger, maybe it's because I really thought that, or I don't know, but I just think that it's got to, now this is a bit of a privilege to say it's got to a breaking point for me because obviously it's been past the breaking point for Black people, but I think that as a whole, the young people need to get out and vote because we're the ones that never show up. You know what I mean? We never show up to vote, but we're the future. So it's like, look, we got to go out there and vote, and then whatever happens, happens. But at least we did our part. You got to do
You
your
know,
part.
you're very candid in saying that you just decided to vote, and I think there's a beautiful irony in the fact that you have your fans saying, "Because of you, I'm voting."
Right.
And there's something beautiful about that. But I want to know why now for you. Why in this moment is it important for you to vote? And what hit your spirit to say, yes, this is the time to do it?
Honestly, because I think that George Floyd really uh, woke up a lot of people who, including myself, who I was vocal and outspoken about racism. I put it in my lyrics. I put it on T-shirts. I would talk about it in interviews. Like, I was vocal about it. But that video in that moment, I think me along with a lot of other people just kind of was like, all right, like words are simply not enough anymore. We gotta do something, whether it's raising money, whether it's voting or all the above. Like we got to do something, and I'm ashamed that it took that for me to be like I need to raise money and I need to vote. It's a shame, and I don't know. I guess it snapped a bunch of people out of it. And even if you were vocal and whatnot, it's time to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's time to go vote. It's time to just stop talking about it and be about it. And it's been time for that, but like I said, I'm ashamed that it took me this long to actually really really be about it, but I'm here now.
So, Russ, we all know that this is going to be your first time voting. Tell me what that
Yeah,
experience is going to be like for you in terms of what you're excited about.
I think you know what it's gonna do for me. It's gonna let me know that I'm contributing to something bigger than myself, and I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm being about it because for so long, and I know I'm not alone with this, but you know standing on the outside and just screaming about this and that and this should change it's like, all right, but did you vote? you know and so I know it's going to feel good to know that I played a small role, and that's the problem. I think the mentality of like my vote doesn't matter needs to be changed to my vote, albeit small, does matter. It's a role I'm playing, and if I play my part and you play your part and he and she plays their part, then we make a difference. But it'll feel. I have a feeling it's gonna it's gonna feel very, very bigger than me. I think when you realize that giving uh, actually feels better than receiving, that's when you start wanting to do your part and contribute. So, voting is an easy way to give. You know.
Yeah. To whom much is given, much is required, and you have been given a huge platform, and we are so grateful for you, Russ. Philanthropist, artist, community activist, first time voter. We appreciate you for doing
Yes.
this, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, la la.
So, cities like Atlanta and Chicago have been at the forefront of the discussions, especially now in this country when we're talking about COVID 19 and systemic racism, as well as police brutality and what we can do in this country. Again, we're continuing our conversation, letting you know that your voice is your vote and your vote is your voice. We can change where we are in this country. Currently, I'd like to welcome in Chicago Cubs right fielder Jason Hayward. I appreciate you. I brought in Atlanta and Chicago because I know you grew up in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, more specifically McDonough. Let's be technical, and and you have been very vocal throughout this entire time in terms of what our country's been experiencing. Let's look at the past month and a half, if you will. What has been the hardest thing for you to deal with?
The hardest thing for me to deal with, Kerry, this last month has just been going from the virus shutting everything down to us being called to action. We've had multiple police brutality situations. We've had people protesting, wanting to get the message out. But I really realized that I need to be a part of the positive message and make sure that doesn't get lost in all the chaos going on, for people to actually hear from a reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved.
A reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved, which leads us to More Than a Vote. It is a beautiful collective of Black athletes and artists. You are a part of that. Talk to me about why that's important for you right now, and this be a part of that collective.
To me personally, it's important to be a part of that because I've somewhat used baseball and my craft as an excuse to not get more involved in voting. But I can't any longer use baseball and work as an excuse not to get educated, and not also to show people, like, at any moment in time, any walk of life, we can make a difference.
So tell me in your words, what does activism look like for you?
In my words, it looks like LeBron James, the biggest athlete right now on the planet, speaking up and breaking the ice for everyone. And I think for the first time, people see and hear from us. So now we have white teammates, we have other people speaking up and realizing, okay, like, this is how we go about doing this. And to me right now, social media, athletes speaking up, entertainers speaking up, like we're trying to do with More Than a Vote.
You said something I thought was so key, because covering sports for so long, I know that it's tough for Black players specifically in Major League Baseball to talk about how they feel. Adam Jones did it in a very eloquent way early on, but there are very few that are vocal. You said you all were afraid. Why use that word, and why were you afraid?
You was afraid because in 2019 there were 68 of us total, and there are 38 teams. There's 25-man roster on each team. There's a 40-man roster, which is on each team as well. And there aren't many of us. So we're outnumbered in that sense, but not always in a negative way when it comes to our teammates and our clubhouses. But to get to this point, you have to move a certain way. You got to be careful what you say. You can't ruffle feathers. You can't come off in any way. Much like other Black entertainers, much like yourself, probably having to live through life every day. But to get to the highest level, you got to button up. You got to be seen and not heard. So baseball is, like I said, it was time for us to try and speak up and make a difference, and show it's okay to do so, because we can't be quiet any longer.
That is a button up, be quiet, be seen but not heard. That is an expression that a lot of Black folks can relate to in whatever aspect of professionalism that they experience, especially if they don't work for themselves. They just feel that. That is also a socialization that we have as Black folks, especially, like you said, if you want to get to the higher level. And for so long, I felt it bubbling right underneath the surface that so many of us who were in whatever positions we were, who had platforms, were tired of pretending and looking the other way and spending so much time making others comfortable while we were uncomfortable. Do you feel that this is the type of movement that is sustainable, or is it just for a time?
No, it takes everyone joining in on the conversation, and right now I feel like more than ever there is little things as possible to distract from bigger issues. And we saw on draft day, we saw our president Bill Epstein holding up a sign saying Black Lives Matter, and wanting to include the rest of the MLB in that. But now we're having those conversations as well. So I definitely think this is sustainable, and it's not always just going to be the popular thing to do. This is something that people want to get right because they know we care.
Jason, you said you think it's sustainable, that what you're seeing, especially with your colleagues in baseball, that this can be something where you're feeling more comfortable, feeling more safe to share how you feel about social injustice and police brutality. What are you doing right now in this moment with your platform to help change how we look at voting and how to educate the culture and the community about voting?
Well, first, what I'm doing, Kerry, is joining up with More Than a Vote and joining up with other athletes and entertainers to get that message out and use our platform in that sense as a group. And try to create a brand with this to make it something that's not just about the election coming, make sure that it's about people getting educated for years to come, and figure out where to vote and how to vote. We've got people in different areas that cover different demographics and influence different areas of people. And as a baseball player, as a Black baseball player, I feel like now, like we talked about, is finding the time to show people that you can use your voice in this profession. You don't have to be afraid. And And to me, that can help someone, help a kid growing up. He can see me, he can see other guys that were in the video we posted saying, hey, this is what they're standing for. They're speaking up for these things, and it's okay to want to play baseball. It's not lame. It's not something I have to be as afraid of as I was before. So I feel like that's my role in this. I have a younger brother as well. He's 24. He also plays baseball. So I've got to lead by example. I can't just always, come up with a good answer that sounds good on TV when I get asked a question on, what do we need to do to make changes. So I'm joining up here to make sure that I take action and get educated myself. For one, so many people, I feel like in Atlanta, they're on the move. Well, when you want to try to make a vote and try and cast your vote, you have to do it by mail. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot. Then you have to get another ballot in return. They have to send it back to you. Well, for me personally, they didn't send that back until it was too late, right? We didn't get it in the mail to the address that's an Atlanta address at my parents' house. We didn't get that in the mail until it was too late. And then from other friends and family that are still in Georgia right now, I just hear about them being held in lines too long and trying to get off work. And we know how it is for any family, but let alone a black family in the city or in the suburbs trying to take care of their family and trying to provide for them. You try to get off work, and then you're like, wait a minute. You start looking at the clock. It's like, oh, this is not going to happen today, right? And so I saw, Mayor Keisha Bottoms, reach out via social media to people and say, hey, I'm going to address these issues right now. I need y'all to stay in line to cast your votes. Keep hanging in there. So to me in Georgia, that's what that looks like.
Well, it's interesting that you even bring that up because there have been all these images, specifically from Georgia, because that's such a battleground, where you see people, especially when it came to the primaries, doing whatever it takes. And this is real life voter suppression that you're talking about. It's been happening for decades. It's not fake. What you're saying, these examples of sending you your ballot too late after the fact or shutting down the polls at 6 o'clock while people still are in line, that's a real life issue. There needs to be some type of change. And I think that what we're doing right now is fair. But the idea of voter suppression, do you think that that is well known, especially with folks, within the generation, your generation?
I think it's known in our communities, right? I don't think it's spoke on enough. I don't think there's been enough light drawn to it. Bring it to light. Let people hear about it. Let people learn about what that looks like, and get more people to say, okay, look, like this is going to happen. We have to expect this, and we can no longer make the excuse. We can't say they didn't warn us.
Jason, everybody knows, or it feels as if everyone knows, that the time is now. America's paying attention to us. We have their eyes, we have their ears. If you look toward the future, what are you most excited about in terms of seeing a change?
I'm excited about how fast the word is traveling. The word is being spread right now. The biggest athletes, the biggest icons, biggest entertainers are doing their part. But I'm also seeing people out there on the streets doing their part. When so many things got lost, could have very easily got in the commotion when it came to protests, and you saw rioting, you saw looting. People still stood their ground. People still went out there and said, look, we're doing this for the right reasons. We're going to come together. We're going to use drones. We're going to use social medias. I feel like this is a new wave of getting things done the right way and just spreading the message.
You're right about that. And you're right. People are spreading the word unapologetically. We out here. We doubling down. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right.
Yeah, la la.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited to welcome a friend, a brother, family member, if you will, former colleague, NBA great, sports analyst, philanthropist. He does it all. And he's here to give us his time and his platform to talk about something that is so important, and that is voting. Everybody, welcome Jalen Rose to We the People. Talk to me about how important it is for the people who know you and love you and look up to you. Why is it so important that you use your platform to talk about voting?
Initially, we have to get past the stigma of the mental systemic racism that comes with the presidential race, governors, mayors, senators, judges. We've been conditioned to believe that our vote does not matter. So usually when we looked up at all of those races and people that were running, not only did they not look like us, we didn't believe they were there to represent our best interests. So therefore, as a collective, we didn't mobilize until Barack Obama, and we felt a sense of hope that finally our country is going to do something that we felt would never happen in our lifetime. And I remember being at the inauguration in 2008. I made sure I was there. And we voted. In 2016, we didn't vote, Carrie. We didn't vote. And so many people try to make this political. This is not political. Me telling somebody to vote is like telling somebody to pay taxes. So that's one, getting over the stigma of nobody is going to represent our best interests. And then number two, the reality is that the person that gets the most votes doesn't necessarily win the presidency. That's uncomfortable right there because that's actually what took place in 2016. The Electoral College chose the president. And if you put all of their pictures up, I'm pretty sure they look a lot more like each other than they look like you and I. How about that? And then the third thing, especially in urban environments, oh man, they create barriers for us, Carrie. It's like you got to jump over the fence, you got to run past the dog, you got to jump on the hood of the car. The lines is 5 hours long. You get up to the pole and they don't work. Elderly people working in the city, while they got the young people who understand technology working in the suburbs. Like these are all systematic things that try to discourage us from voting. And then finally, we don't have a day off to vote. We need to work. So we don't get a day off. It's going to be a full day, and I got to work to pay my bills. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mail in vote. And you know what you want people to realize that that counts too. So your vote will be counted if you're able to mail it in. So those are a few things that I hope that we can do and mobilize. And shout to LeBron and his team. Shout to you and everybody involved. We will make a difference.
Well, let's talk about more than a vote. There is a black collective of athletes, of artists coming together and saying voter suppression is a real deal, especially in the black community. When you just talked about, I got to work, so I can't go vote. And then when we do get in the booth, just in case we don't have to work, do we know who we're voting for? Not only do we have to vote, we got to be educated. And it's not always even about the man who's in office or the woman who's in office for president. It's about your local elections. It's about the people who are your DAs, your state DAs, like the people who actually make change in your community, who will change police brutality, who will make sure that your community is taken care of, who will defund police and hope that they can help you in stopping police brutality. So talk to me about why you decided to be